This is a Scottish blessing. May the blessing of light be upon you, light within, light without, and light within. May the blessed sunlight shine on you like a great peat fire, so that stranger and friend may come and warm himself at it. And may light shine out of the two eyes of you, like a candle set in the window of a house, bidding the wanderer come in out of the storm. And may the Lord bless you and bless you kindly. Amen. Scottish blessing found in the book Celtic Prayers and Blessings. So good evening, everyone. Jai, Jai, Jai. Blessings upon us all. And Heidi, you did such a lovely and heartfelt reading last time of St. John of the Cross's biography. Would you like to tackle it again?
Sure. Thank you for that vote of confidence.
Well, could you move a little closer to the microphone or turn yourself up or something?
Sure. Is that better?
A little better.
A little better. Okay. Okay. St. John of the Cross.
You will need to move a little bit closer, dear, otherwise we won't be able to hear you.
Oh, goodness.
I'm sorry to trouble you.
Got my volume all the way up. Okay. St. John of the Cross. My soul is a candle that burned away the veil. Only the glorious duties of light I now have. St. John of the Cross, 1542 to 1591. And we figured he was what, 49?
Well, yeah, 42 to 91.
49.
If it was 92, he would have been 50, so he was 49 when he passed away.
St. John of the Cross has long been recognized as one of the world's great mystical poets. His verse reveals a profound, tender experience of divine communion. St. John was born Juan de Yepes y Alvarez in Fontaveras, Spain, a town northeast of Avila. Like St. Teresa, his family had been Jewish and were conversos, forced Christians. His father was from a wealthy silk merchant family that disowned him when he married a poor orphaned girl, probably of Moorish descent, from Toledo. St. John's father died when John was quite young, leaving a widow and 3 sons in deep poverty. His mother loomed, and John became a carpenter, painter, and tailor to help support the family. While in his teens, they moved to Medina del Campo, a larger and more prosperous city, where he worked for a while at the hospital. It was during this period that he received his first formal education at a Jesuit school. He was an exceptional student, learned Latin well, and stayed in this school until the age of 21. Then, without much consultation with anyone, he became a Carmelite friar and subsequently spent 4 years at the University of Salamanca. When St. John was 25 years old, a decisive event occurred in his life. He met St. Teresa and was remarkably affected, one could say transformed by her. She was in her 50s and emanated great spiritual power and insight. It is believed that they fell in love in the purest sense with each other. It is reported that she once remarked of St. John, "He was the most angelic human being I have ever encountered." In 1568, John agreed to start the first Reformed monastery for Carmelite friars in a dilapidated farmhouse that Teresa had received from a benefactor. In 1572, he became the confessor for the nuns at the convent of the Incarnation of Avila, where Saint Teresa had been appointed prioress. In 1577, as a result of the attempted reform of the Carmelite order and his alliance with Saint Teresa, he was kidnapped and imprisoned at Toledo. It was during this time of debased confinement and torture by his fellow priests that he miraculously composed some of his greatest poetry. For much of the 9 months St. John was in prison, he was confined to a tiny cell, actually an unlit closet in which he could not even stand up. He was left to relieve himself on the floor of this tiny cell, and his few scraps of food and water were sometimes thrown into his feces and urine. On a regular basis, he was brought from his cell and beaten by some of the other priests to the extent that he became permanently crippled. That's just hard to read.
I know, dear, isn't it?
It really is. And I've read it several times, already, but he was not given a change of clothes or allowed to wash for months. He became infested with lice and developed acute dysentery. He was forced to sleep upon his own excrement. This prison was in the basement of a monastery. One night in prayer, asking God for the strength to endure his confinement and torture, St. John had this remarkable experience or vision. He heard a duet in which God and he were the singers. I won't sing it, but I'm dying of love, darling. What should I do? And the beloved responded, then die, my sweetheart, just die. Die to all that is not us. What could be more beautiful? The Prophet Muhammad once said, die before you die. And a contemporary religious figure, Meher Baba, once said, being is dying by loving. Both are speaking of an important transformative juncture through which we will all pass. My soul is a candle that burned away the veil, says St. John, the veil being that which separates us from God. The veil being the false, the untruths we believe, then we must someday die too. That we must someday die too, before we are born. Following this vision, life changed remarkably for St. John for a while. He was given better care and even pen and paper by a new jailer, and during the next few weeks wrote down some 30 stanzas of Cantico Espiritual and completed La Fonte, and probably Noches Oscura, Black Night, which is really a love poem about transformation. On the eve of the Assumption of the Virgin, the head of the monastery pulled St. John from his tiny cell and hideously beat him, promising that he would be released if he would just abandon the reform movement. That night, the Virgin appeared to St. John, filling his cell and heart with a divine comfort and saying, my darling, I have accepted your surrender to all that has happened here as you believed it was God's will. But now I command you to escape. And within a few days, he miraculously did escape. The most prolific period of his life followed his imprisonment. In solitude, surrounded by the clarity and beauty of the Andalusian landscape, he came to know days of heaven on earth. On December 14th, 1591, just before midnight, St. John, lying near death and remarkably weak, wanted to fix his bed as if someone important were coming to visit. He then asked that the Song of Songs be read. And while he was listening, suddenly he exclaimed, "So beautiful are the flowers," and died. Wow.
Yes, indeed. St. John of the Cross. Some of these poems we're about to read, they are inexpressibly beautiful, inexpressibly. I don't know, I have no words, inexpressibly. They're inexpressible. Haima, would you like to read the first one?
Sure, Brother Shankara. I'll be honored to do that. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Brother Shankara? Okay. Beloved, God held the earth as if it were his lover and spoke with the most tender of feelings to all in existence as he spoke to me. Look, dear son, I have made a bride for you, but she is shy. So how are you to consummate? I want all souls to consummate with me. So I devised a plan. As each soul nears heaven, differences will dissolve to such a sublime extent that when the heart looks upon any object in this world, it will cry, beloved, and passionately run into an embrace with me. That blessed grace I now know. I now see my beloved everywhere. Beloved, God held the earth as if it were his lover and spoke with the most tender of feelings to all in existence as he spoke to me. Look, dear son, I have made a bride for you, but she's shy. So how are you to consummate? Did I say it right, Brother Shankara? Consummate?
Yes.
I want all souls to consummate with me. So I devised a plan. As each soul nears heaven, differences will dissolve to such a sublime extent that when the heart looks upon any object in this world, it will cry, beloved, and passionately run into an embrace with me. That blessed grace I now know. I now see my beloved everywhere. Beautiful, Brother Shankara.
Yes.
Yes.
And of course, that is said to be the final experience of divinity, is that you see, wherever you look, that is what you see. You see the divine.
So does the bride here refer to God?
Yes. You see, God to these people, to these mystics, is both genderless and at the same time both genders. They just see the duality as both genders, And then they see the unity is beyond gender. So the beloved, well, God held the earth as if it were his lover and spoke with the most tender of feelings to all in existence as he spoke to me. Look, dear son, I have made a bride for you, the earth itself, all of what we know as existence. But she is shy. So how are you to consummate? I want all souls to consummate with me. So I devised a plan. God says, as each soul nears heaven, in other words, nears this completion of the soul's journey, differences will dissolve to such an extent that when the heart looks upon any object in this world, it will cry, beloved. So that is that experience of this unitary consciousness. Everything, all differences dissolve. And there's just this unitary consciousness that when you look on anything and passionately run into an embrace with me. In other words, this love of the lovers, of the divine presence, this divine madness, as it's called, and passionately run into an embrace with me. And then St. John says, that blessed grace I now know. I now see my beloved everywhere. So this is the consummation. Seeing the beloved everywhere is because God said, I devised this plan that when you near me, when you near heaven, everything will dissolve. Anyway, that's how I hear it and see it. And are there any other thoughts or anything that you'd like to share?
So, did he get this feeling of everything being his beloved even when he was in prison? Is that how he was able to tolerate all the torture? Or
No, he, at the time, as it says in the little biography, he simply did his best to surrender to it and see it as God's will. So there was, at that point, there was still this duality. There's something happening. It's happening to me. I'm experiencing it. But I mustn't think ill of it or those who are doing it to me. I must see it as God's will. That's at least what's said in the biography. I think this must have been written afterwards in when it's described in this time when he's living in this heaven on earth in the Andalusian countryside. That's my surmise. That's certainly not a definitive statement, but that's how I hear what's been written for us here. He was still experiencing himself and the other. He was experiencing God singing the duet with him, and then he experienced the Virgin Mary as accepting what he had offered as a way of being with this horrible situation he was in. And then she ordered him to escape, and clearly must have provided the way to do that. Anybody else have a thought?
Brother Shankara, I have a comment.
Yes, dear.
this illumined soul really bore the opposition so calmly to purify. He purified his heart right there. Today I was listening to one of the sages, Swami Mukundananda.
Mhm.
He was saying, calmly bear opposition will be the shortest policy to purify your heart. I think St. John really did from the day one. Even
Yes.
under the torture that he bore so calmly. And it's stunning and something to just absorb in us.
Yes, Sri Ramakrishna said forbearance
Yes.
is the mark. The ability, forbearance, he said. This is the
Yes.
mark
He
of
definitely had
a
it.
truly purifying soul.
For the heart.
They just are able to bear it all.
Yes.
Without
Thank you. Thank you, Brother.
Well, thank you, dear. Cindy, would you like to read for us, Why Does Not the Church Tell You?
Why does not the church tell you? At last the time came for the bride to be with him. Nothing all the other brides had ever known could have prepared me. Only the beauty and light you cannot describe has a place in his house. I can touch God, yes, but not with anything I own, not with anything I can identify with, not with anything that knows me. Purity, have you ever contemplated that word? I once beheld the root of the immaculate, and it drew me into itself. I looked at all through his eyes. Why does not my sacred church tell you? God only sees himself. Why does not the church tell you? At last the time came for the bride to be with him. Nothing all the other brides had ever known could have prepared me. Only the beauty and light you cannot describe has a place in his house. I can touch God, yes, but not with anything I own, not with anything I can identify with, not with anything that knows me. Purity, have you ever contemplated that word? I once beheld the root of the immaculate, and it drew me into itself, and I looked at all through his eyes. Why does not my sacred church tell you? God only sees himself.
Anything at all from anyone?
These lines are so powerful. Only the beauty and light that you cannot describe has a place in his house.
Yeah.
I mean, even to like think about that for a minute is so uplifting.
Yes. And it's so uplifting, it seems, because of the promise that we will all experience this as we continue to unfold and uncover the truth of our being. We will become, as he says of himself, at last the time came for the bride, that's him, to be with him. As I say, these people see no gender. They themselves, they see themselves as genderless, or even adopt even if they have a masculine form, adopt this feminine way of thinking and being about themselves. As Mirabai said, are not all souls female before God? So then he says, and so he's just saying, all those others who had gone before me that, wrote or spoke about this, that couldn't prepare me for what happened. And then he tries to describe it himself, only as was remarked on, only the beauty and light you cannot describe has a place in his house. And of course, tracking from the prior poem, he says, I can touch God, yes, but not with anything I own, not with anything I can identify with, not with anything that knows me. In other words, it's beyond all our ideas. And in Sanskrit, the word is upadis, which means coverings or limitations. So he can touch God, but not in any way that is involved with any of his limitations, his coverings. And then he says, have you ever contemplated that word, purity? I once beheld the root of the immaculate. Now, I don't know what others hear, and certainly this is not meant to be definitive. But Jesus said of himself, and he is the immaculate, of course. Jesus said of himself, I am the vine, and ye are the branches. But he also said, I and my Father are one. So in thinking about this, it occurred to me, oh yes, that's because that vine, the immaculate that appeared among us, is rooted in that inexpressible place. And what he's saying is that place of rootedness, that place where the roots, where the immaculate is rooted, drew me into itself, which is beyond duality. I looked at all through his eyes. I and my Father are one. I looked at all through his eyes. Why, then, of course, the question, why doesn't the church tell you about this? Well, of course, he knew the answer. Any other thoughts from anyone about this lovely poem?
Yes. I feel like I had a little bit of a revelation reading this again. When Swayam said about the line, only the beauty and light you can describe has a place in his house. And just all of the other lines about how, these indescribable, undescribable things. But the thing is, we can't describe it, but we know it.
Yes.
Because if we didn't know it, this poem would be nonsense to us.
Yes,
It would
exactly.
mean nothing, which proves that we know it, even though we can't describe it. Anyway,
Yes.
that just hit me for the first time like that.
Yes, I could not say amen more loudly to that. If we didn't already know it, which of course is what the teachers all tell us, that all the knowledge is within you, all of it. So if this poem does make any sense to you, it is because it is reaching behind your coverings, your upadis. Yes. Oh, yes, Cindy. I agree entirely. And that was when I started reading this book, when I first got it and started reading it, after a while it dawned on me, oh, I I'm able to get some sense of what these people are talking about. How blessed is that? How blessed is that? It's just what you just said. But you just said it more eloquently and in a more profound sense. Anyone else have anything to say?
Yes, that question that he poses, purity, have you ever contemplated that word? I think I was listening to one of the talks where it was by a rabbi, I think. Said purity is that ultimate single pointed focus on God. That's how he described purity.
Yes. What a wonderful way to describe it. Anything else from anyone? This idea of this consciousness beyond our ordinary consciousness. We have our ordinary awareness, but then there is a state of being that we come to through prayer, contemplation, whatever it is from the tradition that you follow, that takes you within. We come to so much more than what is on the outside. Swayam, would you like to read I Am What Is Loved?
Absolutely. I am what is loved. I said to God, what are you? And he replied, I am what is loved. I'm not what should be loved. For how cruel that would then be for my bride. I am what is loved. I said to God, what are you? And he replied, I am what is loved. I'm not what should be loved. For how cruel that would then be for my bride. Again, it's such a like a pregnant poem, but
Yes.
I am what is loved, not what should be loved. So just love itself.
All of these mystics, they turn away from the shoulds. We love what we love. And there's no way to force us to love what somebody else says we should love. There's simply no way. There's that wonderful story of Sri Ramakrishna and the farmer who came to him. There was a farmer who lived nearby where Sri Ramakrishna lived at that temple at Dakshineshwar near Calcutta. And the farmer had heard that Sri Ramakrishna loved all aspects of the divine presence. And so he came to him with a very simple and sincere question. He said, I have tried to love these things that people say I should love. And I simply cannot find that love for any of these divine forms or aspects within myself. And so Sri Ramakrishna says, then what do you love? And the farmer thought a moment and he said, well, I have a goat that I raised from just a tiny kid, a baby goat. And I truly love that goat. And Sri Ramakrishna said, very well then, worship the goat. Now, worship within that context has very specific meanings. It means you prepare special food for it, you decorate it, you make garlands to put around its neck. All of these formal, this is what he meant by worship the goat. After 3 years, the farmer returned to Sri Ramakrishna and with tears on his face said, now I understand. And it's like St. John of the Cross and these other mystics say, within everything is the divine presence. And so the farmer had finally realized that the divine presence was in the goat, and that's why he loved the goat. And so then he was able to go beyond that and appreciate what Sri Ramakrishna taught and knew to be true. I've always thought that was such a lovely story because of the simplicity of the farmer and the simplicity of Sri Ramakrishna's response. What do you love? And the farmer said, I love my goat. And Sri Ramakrishna said, very well then, worship your goat. So I see that same lesson. I am what is loved. The divine, I said to God, who are you or what are you? And he replied, I am what is loved. And the reason being that we love the divine. There's an Upanishad called the Big Forest Upanishad. It's a scripture, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. And in it, there's a long narration of a husband telling his wife what he knows because she asks him. He doesn't force it on her in any way. She asks him, what is it that you know that it allows you to go and live the way you're going to live? And he says, the reason we love anything is because of the self within that, the divine presence within that. The wife does not love the husband for the sake of the husband. She loves the husband for the sake of the self. The husband does not love the wife for the sake of the wife, but for the sake of the self. I am what is loved.
I would love to share this awesome sort of experience I've been having. We have a family visiting us from Florida, and their younger son, he just turned 6. I mean, one of the most adorable, loving kids. So they stay in the basement of our house, their bedroom. And every morning when his mom does the arati, he'll come up and then he'll tell me, he calls me grandma, I have something to give you. And then his hand is empty but fisted, and he'll put that on my forehead. That's basically is bringing the blessing from the flame, and he'll touch my forehead.
Yes.
Every morning. And it is such a pure, I mean, I really feel as if God is coming and touching me. It's just it's just a beautiful feeling.
Indeed, Swayam, let me say aloud, amen to your sense that it is God touching you. God in the form of that boy. And his very pure desire to share what he somehow knows is very sacred. I'm so glad you're having that experience. Children can really be, they really can teach us because, as you say, they're so innocent and pure. A 6-year-old child, what can be said of a 6-year-old child? So, Heidi, we're back around to you. Unless, Amy, do you have the book with you? Would you like to read a poem? She's apparently not hearing.
Yeah, I'm happy to read.
Okay, if
If
you
y'all can hear me.
Yeah, my soul is a candle. You'll need to speak up, dear. It is a little.
I'm
It is
trying. I don't know what's going on, but my soul is a candle. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My soul is a candle that burned away the veil. Only the glorious duties of light I now have. The sufferings I knew initiated me into God. I am a holy confessor for men. When I see their tears running across their cheeks and falling into his hands, what can I say to their great sorrow that I have too been known, that I too have known? The soul is a candle that will burn away the darkness. Only the glorious duties of love we will have. The sufferings I knew initiated me into God. Only his glorious cares I now have. My soul is a candle. My soul is a candle that burned away the veil. Only the glorious duties of light I now have. The sufferings I knew initiated me into God. I am a holy confessor for men. When I excuse me, when I see their tears running across their cheeks and falling into his hands, what can I say to their great sorrow that I too have known? The soul is a candle that will burn away the darkness. Only the glorious duties of love we will have. The suffering I knew initiated me into God. Only his glorious cares I now have. Well, of course, this is the poem that's, in the biography.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's referring back to the sufferings, no doubt. But for those of you who aren't Catholic, it may be that you don't know the role of the confessor. Now, of course, every Catholic, every practicing Catholic is expected to go to confession once a month and pour out their heart about how they have, in their own estimation, fallen short of the ideal, missed the mark. That's the meaning of sin. The word sin means missing the mark. How they have missed the mark. And so that's what he's talking about when he says, I am a confessor of men. And he literally was a confessor, as we know, that he literally fulfilled that role. But it's so moving when he says, when I see their tears running across their cheeks and falling into his hands, the one who offers them absolution. What can I say to their great sorrow that I too have known? He's known that great sorrow. Whew, what a beautiful poem. And then he promises, it's again this promise that the mystics make. We'll all have this experience. The soul is a candle that will burn away the darkness. Only the glorious duties of love And of course, love and light are equivalent terms. It's the light of the divine presence. Only the duties of love we will have.
I'm sort of trying to connect this poem with our, some of the Vedantic expressions about how the Atman will show itself. So the soul, I guess, being the Atman. So everything we do is being directed by the Atman to burn away that veil, so that then eventually the Atman will show itself, or we realize.
Mm-hmm. And as Saint Teresa of Avila said, that's happening even to people who don't know it, as she styles it. The way she writes about it is it's happening, but their eyes are closed. If you remember that poem that she wrote, that we're all growing toward that glorious moment of illumination. We're all becoming purer. And as Hafiz so beautifully said, every thought is an innocent step on the path. Even our ignorant and self-misunderstandings and misunderstandings of the world, and the other people and things in it. We do it in our innocence because our ignorance is primordial. When we come into this world, the Christians call it the original sin, the original missing the mark by wanting to know duality, eating of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. If we believe that God is the creator and doer of all things, that was not a mistake. That was just an evolution. Somebody else say something, so I'll stop this rambling. Okay, Haima, why don't you read If You Want?
Sure, Brother Shankara. If you want, the virgin will come walking down the road, pregnant with the holy, and say, I need shelter for the night. Please take me inside your heart. My time is so close. Then, under the roof of your soul, you will witness the sublime intimacy, the divine, the Christ, taking birth forever. So she grasped your hand for help. For each of us is the midwife of God, each of us. Yes, there, under the dome of your being, does creation come into existence eternally. Through your womb, dear pilgrim, the sacred womb in your soul. As God grasps our arms for help, for each of us is his beloved servant, never far. If you want, the virgin will come walking down the street, pregnant with light, and sing. If you want, the virgin will come walking down the road, pregnant with the holy, and say, I need shelter for the night. Please take me inside your heart. My time is so close. Then, under the roof of your soul, you will witness the sublime intimacy, the divine, the Christ taking birth forever. As she grasps your hand for help, for each of us is the midwife of God, each of us. Yes, there, under the dome of your being, does creation come into existence eternally through your womb, dear pilgrim, the sacred womb in your soul, as God grasps our arms for help. For each of us is his beloved servant never far. If you want, the Virgin will come walking down the street pregnant with light and sing. So beautiful.
Yes.
Ah, so beautiful.
Heidi, do you have any idea why June is not able to join us? Because it just occurred to me, the thought just arose, she would love this poem so much.
Yeah, she probably would. I'm not sure. I reached out to her about 5:30 this evening, and I left a message on her cell phone telling her where we were, starting, and that I hope she would join us, and I never heard back. So
I'm gonna have to find out if she's all right.
So I mean, I did. She was in Yoga Friday.
She was at Yoga Friday.
She was at Yoga Friday doing Zoom, okay, and she called me to get the link to get in and so forth, and all that. And she seemed fine then. She seemed fine Friday. So, but I know she's missed, like, this is the third Monday she hadn't been here. And
Yeah.
so
That's
I thought
what
maybe
concerned me, because she tells us that she loves it so much that
I
she
know it.
must be missing it,
I
and there
know.
must be a reason.
And so I thought I could send her the link if she needed it, or I didn't call her again, and I don't know if she really can get her messages from her phone or not, but she'll usually see that she missed a call, and then call you back, is my experience. So, but I'm not sure. I'm supposed to see her Wednesday though. So,
Well, good. Let's hope that
yeah, I hope.
when you see her on Wednesday, Heidi, if you would do me the kindness of just sending me an email or a text, letting me know that she's okay.
I certainly will. Yes.
Okay. So anyone have anything to say about this remarkable poem?
Again, that emphasis that each of us is a midwife of God, each of us, repeating it twice just to reassure, that each of us will or is beloved.
Right? Each of us is the midwife of God, each of us. Of course, we're reminded of Hafiz's poem, each soul completes me. Each soul completes me. That's an active verb, completes. Something is happening, and here it is. Each of us is the midwife of God. This completion, this birth. I can see why Ladinsky writes what he writes about St. John of the Cross. This is shining. These are shining words. They're full of the light and love of the divine.
These few lines also are so touching. Yes, there, under the dome of your being does creation come into existence eternally through your womb, dear pilgrim. So we are all part of
Yes.
creation. If we were not there, what would be in creation? And we are just pilgrims. Not just pilgrims, and we are.
No, we are as human beings,
Yeah.
as the personality self. We are indeed just pilgrims. We come and then we go. Like a pilgrim, we visit here and then we leave. So I think you read that right. Anyone else? Okay, it's 4 minutes before the hour. Let's read the next poem, but we won't have time to really talk about it. This earth a bow. You let my sufferings cease, for there was no one who could cure them. Now let my eyes behold your face, for you are our only love. My spirit's body is rising near, this earth a bow that shot me. Now lift me into your arms as something precious that you dropped. My only suffering from this day forth will be your divine beauty, and you will constantly cure my blessed sight each time you bring your face so near to mine and call me bride. Do not be sad, my old friends. Look, these wings are finally stretched and laughing. Our souls are rising near to you, this earth a bow that shot us. Now lift me into your arms, dear God, as something precious that you dropped. So we'll read that again next week. And because not everyone was here when it was read at the beginning, I'm going to read this beautiful Scottish blessing. I need to put on a different pair of glasses. Yeah, these are my new computer glasses. A Scottish blessing. May the blessing of light be on you, light without and light within. May the blessed sunlight shine on you like a great peat fire, so that stranger and friend may come and warm himself at it. And may light shine out of the two eyes of you like a candle set in the window of a house, bidding the wanderer come in out of the storm. And may the Lord bless you and bless you kindly. Amen. Isn't that beautiful? It's a traditional Scottish blessing. It didn't have an author. I mean, there wasn't any authorship where I found it. It was just in this book of Celtic prayers and blessings. Any final thought from anyone else? So may that blessing, may that prayer be a reality for each of us. May we be radiant. May we let our light shine, bidding the stranger come in out of the storm. I don't know, I made a card of this. Tell me if you can see what it is that's on the front of this. It's a snowscape with this house. It's in Finland. And there's this house. And in this cold, dark snowscape, there's this brilliant lighted window in this house, bidding you to come in and share in the light and be warm. It's a beautiful, beautiful picture. So, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May He make His countenance to shine upon you and give you peace. May we all be healthy. May we all be safe. May we all be cheerful. And may we all have peace of mind. So, to those who weren't here, we offer our invitation that they join us. Because this company is so lovely, so thoroughly lovely. Heidi, good night, dear. Swayam, Ima, Cindy,
Night.
Amy. I don't know if you're there and you hear us, but good night, dear Amy. So until next time, dears.
Thank you. Good night. Hari Om, everybody.
Night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night, dear.
Thank you, Roshan.
Thank you, dears. Thank you, thank you, thank you from all my heart.